From our studio and our office at the corner of 8th and Walton in Bentonville, Arkansas, welcome to Saturday Morning Meeting, brought to you in part by Dun & Bradstreet Credibility Corp., the leading provider of credit and credibility solutions for businesses. Saturday Morning Meeting covers Walmart, Sam's Club, and the consumer product companies that are represented on the racks and shelves throughout the country and around the world. Our focus is on the insights, trends, and best practices to help you as a supplier grow your business with the world's largest retailer. I'm Andy Shook, and thank you for joining us today. Today we'll meet Jeff Amerine of the University of Arkansas as he continues his series on helping suppliers called Swimming in a Sea of Data. Now later, we'll talk with Teresa Warren of 8th and Walton on 5 ways to grow your CPG business. But first, the headlines. Walmart didn't have to look too far to source a winning product at the recent open call for suppliers. While the purpose of the event was to identify new American-made goods to sell at Walmart stores and online, Walmart found a real winner practically in its backyard, according to a recent report by 5newsonline.com. Fayetteville inventor Hugh Jarrett developed his taco plate out of frustration stemming from his college days. Now, he enjoyed eating tacos, didn't like how they would fall all over on his plate. Jarrett invented a plate with ridges that keep tacos upright, as well as sections for rice, beans, or other side dishes. Walmart was impressed with the product and ordered 1 million plates. A decrease in U.S. unemployment rates isn't translating to higher retail sales. In a recent interview with Reuters, Walmart U.S. CEO Bill Simon noted that the middle and working classes just aren't spending as much as they used to. Now, that has resulted in slower sales. Now, Simon also disputed the notion that Walmart does better in a slow economy and stated that, in the long run, Walmart relies on strong economic conditions for better sales. Walmart mobile site users may notice that the site is loading faster these days. InternetRetailer.com reports that Walmart is using a smart code to reduce load times from 10.54 seconds to 10.3 seconds. Still, even with this improvement, Walmart's mobile site load times lag other retailers on the Keynote Mobile Commerce Performance Index. Topping the index is Sears with a load time of only 2.24 seconds. Are the days of the supercenter numbered? CBSNews.com reports that Walmart plans to increase focus on smaller stores while also shaking up its merchandise assortment. Now, the article notes that Walmart wants to increase alcohol sales significantly, perhaps in response to Costco's liquor sales success. In addition, Walmart is experimenting with the sale of high-end items such as expensive kitchen islands and premium mattresses via Walmart.com. Not all Walmart.com customers want their purchases delivered to their home. In fact, 1 out of 5 Walmart.com orders are picked up by the customer in the store. Now, according to VentureBeat.com, in a recent interview, Jibu Thomas, Walmart's head of mobile, noted in a recent interview that Walmart is working to blend the distinctions between the channels, such as developing apps and other services for smartphone users as they shop in Walmart's physical stores. Blurring the lines between shopping channels can't come soon enough for one Atlanta Journal-Constitution journalist. Clark Howard was shopping at Walmart when he experienced what has become a common scenario. At many retailers, shopping in a physical store for an item only to find that it is available at a lower price through the same retailer's website. Now, many customers want identical pricings for brick and mortar and online. Though Walmart stores do not yet offer price matching with Walmart.com, it is possible to order an item via the website and arrange for it to be picked up in store. This week, Jeff Amerine, director of University of Arkansas Technology Ventures, talks with Kathy Deck of the University of Arkansas. Now, they'll help us understand how macro issues are affecting the retail industry. In the second part of the series, Swimming in a Sea of Data.
Today, we're fortunate to have Kathy Deck, an economist with the University of Arkansas, with us today to discuss some of the macroeconomic issues that are going to impact the consumer and retail decision maker. Kathy, thanks for coming today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So just, a couple of interesting things going on in sort of the macroeconomic geopolitical realm we want to talk about. What's your take on this 2.9% GDP setback that we had in Q1?
Well, a lot of folks have said it's the weather. and I'm an economist, so I know it's always more than just one thing when we see an economic phenomenon like that. So yes, it was absolutely freezing this winter, and I do think that that had a major impact and discernible impact on the GDP number. But we also saw a major buildup of inventories. We saw the consumer be a little weaker than we would hope for, and we saw that our exports weren't as strong as we might have liked. And so all of those things factored together to give us that really horrific GDP number.
And it was really kind of a shock to a lot of people. They'd forecasted, what, a reset of about -1, and almost 3 was a big deal.
2014 is supposed to be the breakout year for economic growth. And so to see a big negative number on that first quarter was really quite a shock to everyone. And the rest of the year, now, most of us don't think it's going to be quite strong enough to get back to where we thought we would be before we saw that
so you're not quite as optimistic as the St. Louis Fed president would be.
I will be surprised if we finish above 3% growth for the whole year. I think that we might see some good quarters, but in fact, if you look at how the second quarter was shaping up, I think the consumer was relatively modest in that in that time period as well.
I got it. Now and so that's kind of a good discussion as well to think about what impact is Fed action or inaction going to have on a consumer and on demand in general. What's your take on that?
So the most traditional way that the Federal Reserve affects the consumer is by affecting the price of borrowing for homes.
Right.
And so really that interest rate is set, and then the mortgage rates are set in the market kind of off of what the Federal Reserve does.
Sure.
So there's a differential impact between the homeowner or the potential homeowner and then that big segment of consumers who in fact don't own homes and are in the rental market.
Right.
And so what we've seen right now is that the conditions are great for home buying. We still see very, very low interest rates, and home prices haven't appreciated through the roof the way they were during the bubble. But that rental market is seeing a little bit of a price increase as we haven't seen enough units come on to meet the
not
rental
adequate
demand
supply.
yet. Not adequate supply right now. Even though there is quite a bit in the pipeline right now, we're watching that.
Are you seeing impacts on construction employment? I mean, are those numbers up as well?
So construction employment, if you look at the graph, there's a great big bubble, and you see exactly what happened to the United States economy. And yes, construction employment has come back, but nowhere near where it was.
Yeah, that makes sense. It really does. The other thing that is sometimes described as sort of a subtle, regressive, maybe not so subtle tax on consumers, or the price of oil and as a result gasoline. What do you see? And as very volatile, what's your take on the impact that's going to have?
Gas prices hit consumers a couple of ways. First of all, they hit them in the head. You see that price posted where you don't see other prices
lack of
posted.
Confidence instills a lack of confidence.
That's right. And so all of a sudden, if you see it jump 10 cents or 20 cents or 30 cents, as a consumer, you think that prices everywhere are going up around you, even if it's actually a rather modest part of your income. But whether it's modest or not, in fact, your income hasn't changed. And so you have to redistribute your spending one way or another. And so it is absolutely, particularly for the lowest income consumers, a big hit to their wallets.
It makes it difficult for them to get to work if these prices do go up.
That's right. It can be as hard as that. It can also hit consumers in the fact that they may have a more difficult time, in fact, getting to their job because they can't afford the gas, they can't afford the car that would that would need the gas, and so it's a very insidious tax.
You know, and that's kind of the segue to the general outlook for the rest of the year. I've heard it described that there's still sort of a retail funk, and maybe that's largely because of what's going on with the overall consumer demand. What's your outlook for retail and CPG for the rest of the year based on some of these things that we see happening?
Well, we know there is no the consumer. We see consumers who are at every part of the income scale. And so if you're at the upper end of the income scale and you have stock wealth and you have retirement and you have all of these things, then you have an ability to spend, and we're in fact seeing those consumers go back out, reacquire some credit, and go shopping again. But if you're looking at the average consumer and maybe even below average kind of wealth, they don't really have access to credit. They're certainly not seeing their wages increase at a rate faster than inflation, and they just don't see anything that's affecting their purchasing power for the days ahead.
So if you're a retail or you're a brand decision maker, is that going to have impacts on your product mix? What are you going to do in response to that?
You need to know exactly who you have as your customer and who your shopper is, and how their incomes and that availability of credit. Those are the two ways that they can get your product into their homes are going to affect them. And so yes, I think it absolutely affects the mix of products and then your outlook on where you should put your focus.
I got it. That's interesting. I mean, are there any other last little tidbits of advice or insights that you'd want to give? What do you have coming up next that might be of interest to decision makers in the retail and CPG space?
Well, we always have our business forecast luncheon. Our next one's actually in January. We try to get a sense of what's going to happen during the year. It'll be January 30th, 2015. But we are putting out information between now and then. We have some consumer sentiment numbers and some other good projections that'll be released.
Well, you all are a great resource, very beneficial, and thanks for all that you do. And thanks for coming in this week. I really appreciate it. Tune in next week. I'll be talking to Clint Lazenby, formerly of ConAgra and currently with On Shelf. Saturday morning meeting will be right back after this.
K-Stack, the leader in collaborative retail consolidation programs. We offer the supply chain expertise needed to navigate the challenges of selling products with the world's largest retailers. And we provide customers with a customizable, scalable, environmentally sustainable supply chain with the same advanced technology typically used by larger rivals. By leveling the playing field, K-Stack lowers distribution costs and increases overall margins. K-Stack, retail logistics is what we do.
Every day, shoppers are bombarded with traditional brand messages outside the store in hopes that these marketing dollars will drive in-store sales. Closure Media drives retail sales by connecting brands with 95 million Walmart shoppers per year while they are in the store. Through innovative programs at Walmart's photo and money centers, Closure Media converts Walmart shoppers to purchasers of your brand. With reported redemption rates up to 7 times the national FSI average, Closure Media drives sales. For more info, visit us at closuremedia.com.
Bentonville Commerce, less than 1 mile from the Walmart home office. You'll love the convenience, amenities, and customized options Bentonville Commerce offers. For more information or a tour, call 479-200-1112 today.
Hi, I'm Missy and I love ribs. Here's how I eat them. First, you make sure the ribs are covered in barbecue sauce because that's the best part. No. Whoa, let's dig in. They're really good. My hands are sticky.
Wet-Nap Hands, Face, and Body Cleansing Wipes are gentle enough for faces and leave skin feeling fresh and soft.
All done.
The original Wet-Nap. Live life, have fun, get messy.
Only at Walmart.
Today, we're here with Walmart veteran and retail guru, Teresa Warren. Teresa sheds light on ways to grow your CPG business by giving you highlights from one of her most popular day-long classes at 8th and Walton. And welcome back to Saturday Morning Meeting. Joining us today is Teresa Warren from 8th and Walton. Welcome, Teresa. So, Teresa, you've been a part of Walmart for years and years, and now you're an instructor over at 8th and Walton helping suppliers. So you've put together 5 ways to grow your CPG business. How did you put that together?
A lot of years of experience.
A lot of years' experience at Walmart?
Yes, and just learning and experimenting with suppliers and working with them over the years with Walmart.
Great. Well, let's dig in. What are the 5 ways? How do we grow our business? How do suppliers grow their business at Walmart?
You have to know your numbers inside and out. You have to be the expert. You have to know them better than anyone else. There's nothing worse.
I have to agree with you. The very first time I ever called on Walmart, I think it was back in 1998 when I first started with, I was selling DiGiorno pizza and Tombstone Pizza. And I remember walking into that meeting. It was the first, back in those days, nobody had information other than Walmart. And I walked in, I didn't know my sales, I didn't know what items were selling, which ones weren't, and that buyer chewed me up and down about not knowing my numbers. And it's a great lesson.
Yeah, if you want to grow your business at Walmart, you have to be the expert. You have to know everything about them.
Well, and I made a commitment after that I would always know my numbers better than the buyer.
And you can't ever be caught off guard. It's a best practice. I mean, that is the first and most important thing.
That's right.
Because that earns you the right to be able to grow the business, to move to the next level.
Well, and that's what suppliers are looking for, right?
Definitely.
They want to kind of move into that next spot.
And the next thing is you want to review the gaps, and you want to understand the contributors to your gaps.
The gaps, when you say like recognizing gaps and taking a look at that, what exactly does that mean? Is the gaps in your business, or how does that work?
It's understanding the gaps in how your business is performing. So first of all, when you start looking at your business results, you need to understand what are the factors that have influenced or resulted in the numbers that you've gotten? So sometimes that could be maybe looking at applying something known as an 80-20 rule, where you start looking at your sales by item, and you look at your inventory by item, and you look at the sales ratio to inventory. So in other words, when you look at your sales and you're looking at what's driving 80% of your sales, what does that represent to the profitability? And what does that represent to your inventory? So if you focus on eliminating the inventory in the items that are not generating sales, it will improve the overall profitability.
Suppliers just want to ship everything in, don't they? I mean, isn't that, they just want to ship it all in?
It is, but the fact of the matter is, a buyer has an open to buy, and they are held to that open to buy. And
so if you're
inventory,
the one that's shipping in a little too much, or you're not really paying attention to this, you're actually kind of hurting your chances with that buyer.
You are, because if your sales forecasts are too high, you're not managing those inventory levels, you're keeping yourself from getting more shipments in products that are going to sell, that are going to generate more revenue for you as a supplier.
Wow. So what other gaps are there?
Some other gaps might be really understanding if you're looking at some of the things that have contributed to those. So maybe looking at, as you're executing the end of a modular, you know you've lost some items, you've got some new items in, making sure you transition out of those inventories in the right way.
Okay.
Looking at and staying on top of your business, really getting into those things, understanding if there's things that have gone out of your control, such as economic changes that have influenced the results that you've gotten, or weather. So how do you react to those?
Weather, that was a big topic. That was a big topic at the beginning of the year, wasn't it?
Definitely.
I mean, they're still talking about it, you know, as far as to how it impacted business. And
how are you going to anniversary those things next year? I mean, that's something you have to plan.
Well, for a lot of people, actually, as long as you weren't selling snow shovels and ice, you know, stuff and jackets, you're going to be on anniversary it much better.
Oh,
because,
definitely.
You know, as
or
far
how
as
do you
next
anniversary events that you've had, or rollbacks? Those are things that you have to have a plan for, to figure out how you're going to come across those. And how do you anniversary those gaps? So you have to know the numbers, you have to understand the factors that influence those, and then you have to start developing action plans. So it's really getting into really saying, okay, if I'm going to take advantage of the opportunities now, to say, okay, what am I going to do next year to really take advantage of this?
So it's really putting a, you know, so when you're talking about the opportunities, what are the type of plans that I would be putting together with a buyer?
Well, first of all, before you put the plans together, you have to understand some basics.
Okay.
You have to know what is important to that buyer. When you start understanding what's important to that buyer, you understand such things, and typically there's certain things that are thresholds with the buyer.
Right.
And you got to know what those are. So example, velocity. What's more important to your buyer, unit velocity or dollar velocity? And then what are those expectations for an item that's considered good in your category?
Okay.
Most buyers will be glad to tell you that.
So you might be selling at a half a unit per store per week or 1 unit per store per week, and it might be good or bad.
You might think
you don't really know. I might think it's great, but the
Right.
buyer may think that's horrible, it's not performing at all.
Right.
Okay.
And threshold, when you start looking at velocity on units per store per week, that starts leveling the field across all of the items.
Right, right.
So you start looking at which items are the most productive items. And so when you start thinking about that, you realize that when that review comes around next year on the annual review on which items make it on that modular and which ones don't, you know how you stack up.
Right.
If you know the playing field before you go in.
Well, Teresa, hold that thought. Well, we want to finish up on determining the opportunities as we take a look at that. But we're going to take a short break. Saturday morning meeting will continue right after these messages.
GigWalk is an on-demand mobile workforce that can collect data and do work at retail. Businesses use GigWalk for retail audits, merchandising, and much more. With 350,000 smartphone-enabled workers available on demand, you get unprecedented speed and coverage across the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. And all work is reviewed for quality and accuracy. Visit gigwalk.com to learn more.
Bentonville Plaza, across the street from the Walmart home office. The best office location offers proximity and services like no other business complex in the area. Call 479-200-1112 today.
Hi, I'm Missy and I love ribs. Here's how I eat them. First, you make sure the ribs are covered in barbecue sauce because that's the best part. No. Whoa, let's dig in. Good, they're really good. My hands are sticky.
Wet-Nap hands, face, and body cleansing wipes are gentle enough for faces and leave skin feeling fresh and soft.
All done.
The original Wet-Nap. Live life, have fun, get messy.
Only at Walmart.
All right, and welcome back. We're here with Teresa Warren from 8th and Walton, learning 5 ways to grow your CPG business. Okay, so we were on opportunities, right? Opportunities to grow your business.
Yes.
All right, so what else do we have?
Well, one of the best ways to grow your business, which I'm sure everyone would tell you, is innovation.
Innovation.
That's the big item. So when you start talking about one of the best ways on innovation to grow your business is look at the category and look at where the opportunities are.
Where the gaps are.
Where the gaps
things
are
that
in the
Walmart
category.
might not be doing.
What's unique, what's different. I mean, there's sleeper categories out there that all of a sudden that didn't have any innovation for years, and all of a sudden there was a tremendous amount of innovation. Example, marshmallows. Who would have thought? You change the flavors.
Marshmallows, yeah. I mean, they're just white, right? I mean, that's
right.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that. Innovation is key. And the thing with innovation, though, is if you're wanting a buyer to take you seriously on putting a new item in, you have to be at least a year out in advance. Because get that into the buyer's mind. Yes, you may have a line review a few months before the modular goes, but you need to have that set in their mind so that they're thinking about it.
So, Teresa, how do you get a buyer to bring in an innovative item, something that's new, but it's not really proven yet?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. One way you might consider it is, first of all, why is it unique or different to the customer? The second thing is looking at maybe not getting into all stores. Say, okay, if this is unproven, would you be willing to do a small test? Give us an opportunity to test this in a certain region or a few states to see how does this do. Then if it does well, we can expand to the next level. And a lot of times buyers, especially, we're hearing more and more every day that that's something that Walmart's looking for because they truly do want those things.
They truly have. I mean, with the regional players, they've really opened up the door to a lot of new items that they weren't carrying before. Yeah. So next one, what?
Implementing the action plan.
Okay.
So when you start implementing the action plan, obviously it starts with the low-hanging fruit. So when you start deciding you're going to implement changes, that you're going to grow your business, you have to start looking at, okay, if I'm going to implement this, it goes back to what I was saying. A year out, get that in front of the buyer. Start talking about these things in advance. Let the buyer understand your consumer insights. Do your marketing research. Do your market share checks. Get into what the syndicated data does. Look at what you can find on the internet about the item or the category that would tend to lead someone to think that that is truly
You said
unique.
the low-hanging fruit. What exactly does that mean? I mean, you hear that term quite a bit used within our industry, but what exactly is the low-hanging fruit?
Well, low-hanging fruit is oftentimes starting with the things that are obvious. So what were the big things that you know you can easily do with the least amount of effort that's going to turn your business around? So if you went back and looked at the things that you did last year that you know you could do differently, it's putting plans in place to do that and address those first. And work with your buyer. Communication is the key.
Yeah,
if you're not communicating what you want to do, even admitting to what you know you've had opportunities in, why would the buyer consider to take a chance on you? It really comes down to communication. Everything does.
Yeah, it does. So what about what's the last one? What do we have
the
for
last one? Is monitoring your results and taking corrective action. So when you get through and you really you're putting this plan in place to improve your business. You've sat down, you've planned all of the things. So you've actually put in place all of the things on when you're going to have the promotions, how you're going to anniversary your numbers, all of those things in place. Then you have to monitor it. So monitoring
what if it didn't go well? I mean, what if it just didn't go well? Do you still have to report that to the buyer?
Yes. That's part of building that credibility.
Okay.
You
I guess
admit,
it is. Yeah, you admit that it just didn't work out.
There's nothing worse than hiding anything.
Oh, I know.
That's the worst thing you can do, because if a buyer hears about something from another source other than you, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you are.
You really are. You've got some issues. Now, one of the things that you can do in your monitoring results is something that goes back to Walmart culture from many, many years ago that Mr. Sam used to implement. It was called COEs. So
COEs. Okay, this is a big deal. COEs.
COEs are known as correction of errors. So a COE is a document that actually says, when I have sat down at the end of the month and I have looked at my numbers, I looked at what I did business-wise, and I looked at how I'm going to anniversary that. And I've sat down and said, okay, these were my successes. These were the things I did okay on. These were my opportunities. So correction of errors is not always a bad thing.
Right.
It's the good things.
It's
the learnings. It's I launched this item here. This had this kind of an impact on my sales.
And a supplier can actually kind of use that with the buyer, maybe.
Absolutely.
In discussions that they have with
When you talk about next year and you're talking about implementing next year, you know immediately, you've got a record that says, this is what I did last year.
That's right.
And if you've got that record, you know what you've got to come up against and how you're going to anniversary.
Teresa, thank you so much for coming in today and explaining these. So to all of you with CPG businesses out there, to grow your business, you need to know your numbers inside out, recognize your gaps, determine your opportunities, implement an action plan, start with the low-hanging fruit, monitor those results, correcting as you go. Thanks, Teresa, for this great little outline. Saturday morning meeting will conclude right after this. Joining me today for Retail Insights is Stan Zalowski. Stan's the co-founder and president of Movista. So Stan, augmented reality. It's a new trend. What is it?
Really, augmented reality is a catch-all term for anything we do to use technology to make an experience better. If you ever gone to Disney World, gone through the scary house, and you've looked in the mirror and seen the ghost riding in the cart?
Oh, yeah.
Augmented reality.
Well, and how is that going to impact our shopping experience? I mean, how do you take it from Disney World and bring it to where? The stores?
Well, one simple way to do it is get rid of the ghost and make that a shirt or a pair of pants or a dress or a skirt or whatever you're trying on. So in certain retailers now, you go into the dressing room, you don't bring any clothes with you, you have a computer screen, you pick the garment and you're actually going to see yourself with that garment on. Another way to do it, a good example is wearable technology is a big trend now. You go into the store, you want to see what that's going to look like on you.
So you can see different colors, you can see different styles.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Wow. So now, when do you think we're going to see this at retail?
I think you're going to see it, well, you can see it now, depending on retail, but speaking specifically about mass, I think what you're going to see is over the next few months, little opportunities to use smart devices, either that you bring in or some hardware in the store, to do really cool things with 3D, see what's inside of stuff, get marketing messages.
Now, what are you finding with the retailers? Is the retailer paying for it? Are the suppliers paying for it? How is that kind of working out now?
Well, ultimately, it's always sort of a joint venture, right?
Okay.
But what we're talking about mainly, the cost here is going to lay on the side of the hardware. And with 90% of adults having a smart device in their pocket, it's easy to leverage that. I do think you're going to see, and I feel pretty sure about this, you'll see fixturing that has the device built into it as well.
Well, it sounds exciting. And so, how do we find out more about this?
Just visit us at www.mvretail.com. We've got a blog on there and a bunch of links so you can learn a lot, and we'd be happy to help you if you have questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Stan. Hey, we're looking forward to what you bring us next month. Our thanks to Jeff Amerine, Kathy Deck, and Teresa Warren. Join us next week when we talk with Chris Summer of Henkel on how Dial markets products for ethnographic trends. And Jeff Amerine will be here with Clint Lazenby and continues his series, Swimming in a Sea of Data, on how to not drown in the vast amounts of available information. As always, we appreciate your taking the time to join us. Now, if you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. I'm Andy Shook, and from all of us at Saturday Morning Meeting, thanks for watching.